Chief O'Brien's face gets very pink when he's aggravated. Tosk is the most natural straight man Chief O'Brien has met in ages. And a ram scoop is used to capture stellar gases and convert them into usable fuel. Of course, obviously, everybody knows this. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Seventh Rule Deep Dive with Cirroc Lofton.
Hello, hello.
And Malissa Longo is here.
Hello, hello.
My name is Ryan T. Husk. Today we're doing a Deep Space Nine deep dive of episode 5, season 1's Captive Pursuit, story by Jill Sherman Donner and teleplay by Jill Sherman Donner and Michael Piller. This is directed by Corey Allen. This was January 31st, 1993. Where were you? We have a very special guest, everybody. The reason you are here, Tosk himself, among other things, Mr. Scott McDonald.
I am Tosk.
Yes.
Perfect.
Boom. End of interview. It's over.
Yeah, we did it. So
Now
very
you are
quickly,
Tosk as well.
right, before we even get any further, let's just acknowledge, also, you've got the picture of Tosk behind you. You also have the picture of Garanagar. Everybody knows this is the Jem'Hadar that was off the white on that planet. And you'll remember this. Julian Bashir would call him Garanagar. And if you remember that, you remember that episode.
Yes.
You were also Rollins in the first episode of, not of the Henry variety, of the first episode of Voyager. And in Next Generation, I believe you were a Romulan. Is that right?
Yeah, I was Sub-Commander Nivek. I kidnapped Marina Sirtis and made her into a Romulan.
Yes. That
Yeah.
was
So
so
fun.
good. Yes.
Yeah. Again, I was really lucky and got in a lot of really well-written episodes of Star Treks on all 4 of the new, well, at the time, the new. This is the 30th anniversary of Tosk, which just hurts my feelings. Because luckily I did it when I was 5 years old. So
Mhm.
Is Tosk still on the run?
yes, he is. Yes.
Tosk lives.
Nope, they never got him.
Tosk lives. They never got him.
So, Scott, this was your first role in Star Trek, I believe. Sub-Commander Nivek was same year, about the same time, but technically this one was recorded, shot, and released first. Were you a Star Trek fan before you were on Star Trek? And can you tell us what the interview process was? Like the first days coming on for the interview, the first day coming on that gigantic, beautiful set.
Well, it was an intensive process. The audition process was really intensive. This was my first. I was in a play at the Mark Taper Forum that had won the Pulitzer Prize, and Junie Lowry and Ron Surma auditioned me the year before for Next Generation, and I booked the job but couldn't do it because I was in the play, and so the following year they came back and said, we have another one for you to try if you want to come in for it, but the makeup is going to be really, really, really intensive. And I was just massively excited because, yes, I was a Star Trek fan. I really liked, reruns of, we'd run home from football practice when I was in high school in order to watch Star Trek, the original series reruns, And I actually was we made a video when I was in high school that was a kind of a joke takeoff on Star Trek, where I played Captain Kirk and everybody in a red jersey was down in this one room and they would get called to set and they would all scream and howl and cry because they knew that all the red shirts die. And we literally had a production guy drag them out to go to the set. It was pretty good. It was pretty funny. We had some pretty funny jokes, that were in it. I wish I had that thing. It would be hilarious to put it together with some of the stuff that I've done since then. But so yes, I was a fan. The audition process was incredibly intense. It was my first guest star in Hollywood. So I didn't really know processes. And I kept doing things throughout the shoot and everything that were a little perhaps untoward, but I didn't know it. And I would have it kind of explained to me later, in various instances. But I read the first time I went in, and I read, and then they called me back, and I went back down, and I had really specific ideas. They showed us a rendering of Tosk and kind of talked about him and what he was, this creature who was bred to be hunted. And so I had some really specific ideas, and my imagination kind of took over. I felt like I had a lot of opportunities to create new stuff because Tosk was the absolute first creature to come through the wormhole from the other side on the show. So I thought, okay, that gives me as an actor these opportunities for massive discovery. Everything he sees. I mean, at that time, we didn't have any idea what was on the other side. We were still, that was, unknown information. Plus, no episodes had aired when we filmed this. So, I knew who O'Brien was, but I didn't know any of the other characters yet. I was just coming off of, and it was the first time we did the makeup, it took 6.5 hours to get into it.
Holy mackerel.
I got there at 3 a.m. and got to set at 9:30. And so I never, ever saw anybody in the company out of my makeup.
Wow.
I got there before everybody and left after everybody every day that I shot. The only people who saw me out of my makeup were Corey Allen and Colm Meaney, because on the very last day of shooting, they took me. There used to be that little bar there on the lot at Paramount. I don't remember the name of it. It was kind of on the campus of Paramount Studios. And
Cirroc, you may have been too young.
They invited me over there to have a drink with them, both of them, Colm and Corey, which was flattering in and of itself, But it was, I went in and I read, and then they called me back, and I came back and I read again. And the second, of course, for the callback, the room was full of the producers. Everybody was there. And they kept giving me direction that they wanted him to be scarier. They wanted him scarier. They wanted him meaner. And they kept showing me the rendering saying, look at him, look at him. And I didn't know you weren't supposed to do this. I said, no, you're wrong. He should be an adaptoid. He should figure out how to get along with these people in order to accommodate his wishes, to use this facility to stay free, because freedom is the only thing he's interested in. He's on the run. He's free. As long as he's on the run, he's winning. So I don't agree with you. I don't think he should be scary. I think he should figure out how to get what he needs out of these people, and he's not going to get it here. And I even said in the audition, if he was on Kronos with Klingons, he would be meaner. He would get his blood up. He would do what they would respect in order to get what he needs as this adaptoid. And Corey Allen was in the room, our director, and he was from the method school. He was with, Corey Allen is the guy who goes over the cliff in Rebel Without a Cause with James Dean in the car race. That's Corey. Corey was a legendary Hollywood acting teacher and a legendary actor in Hollywood for a long time. And he came in with all those method guys, Dennis Hopper, James Dean, all of those guys. So he was responding to my audition because I was coming up with historical sourced motivations for Tosk. So he started to kind of help me. He even came in front of all the tables where all the producers were and read with me. And they kept correcting me, kept telling me, no, we want it this way. We want it this way. And I kept fighting for my position. I didn't really know that you weren't supposed to do that. I was in this massively collaborative play. So I naturally was just being collaborative, I thought. And there were a lot of really good, at the time, lead characters from television series waiting in that hallway. it was intimidating. There were a lot of really high quality actors sitting out in that hall reading for Tosk. But I just thought, I got to stick with my choices. I'm just going to hang in here and fight for this. I didn't feel like I was going to get it, which sometimes is freeing for an actor. And so Corey, it was pretty extraordinary. Corey started to agree with me and fight with the table. And so I was kind of, Corey and I became this team kind of against them in this, and not in a negative way, just creatively. And they gave me this one adjustment and I didn't agree with it, but Corey leaned in and he said, go about halfway so that they feel like they won. He whispered it in my ear. And I said, okay. And I did. And we finished, and it was the speech where it's a wonderful speech where Tosk explains he can't accept asylum because it goes against the principle of his life. And Corey was sitting there, and I'm not kidding. This is probably 45 minutes in an audition.
That's a long time.
Unbelievable.
That's
Unbelievable.
great,
it hasn't happened to me since. And I've been in a million of them. And it hasn't happened to me since. And of course I had no idea at the time. I thought, oh, this must go on all the time. Because, you don't feel like you're you don't feel like you're special. You just think this must be how it is. Right. And Corey, we finished that audition and I did that little speech, and Corey turned and looked at them, and he was flush. He was kind of angry. And he looked at those guys sitting at that table and said, does anybody else have any damn questions for this fine actor? And just stared him down. It was extraordinary. I mean, I left thinking, wow, maybe, maybe. But I had a little bit of that feeling of like, boy, that felt a little bit more like a fight than it did an audition, Mm-hmm. And then I got it, and went and met Michael Westmore, and he showed me the original plate, and we did the form of my head, and we started to build that Tosk mask. And I mean, I was a kid in a candy store. I was on the lot at Paramount. I was going into the makeup. I had a little trailer that was mine. It was my first job in Hollywood of any significance at all. And I understand now. Yeah, go ahead.
I want to, before you get too far away from where you just were, this is your first job in Hollywood. That's where you're at. But I want to ask you, in the audition, because it's so much makeup, what were you doing physically with your body to portray this character? Was there some of that involved in it, or is it just about the dialogue?
No, that's a great question, and there was. I had an idea that because he looked so reptilian, I had this idea, how they talk a lot about dinosaurs becoming birds, the sort of avian connection to. So I had a lot of what I felt like were bird head movements, because I was imagining that mask.
I was
on
catching that, yes.
Mm-hmm.
And now we know where it came from.
So I had a lot of, and then and it got even more so in that makeup chair for 6.5 hours, I would practice. I would just sit there in front of that mirror while they were working on me, because they don't allow you to sleep while they're working on you. And so I was, thinking, oh, this looks proud. This looks inquisitive, because it's such a strange process. You have no face. No, you can't raise an eyebrow. You can't curl a lip. And this is the first mask that Michael Westmore ever glued inside the lips of the actor.
Wow.
First one ever. And I had these cat's eye contact lenses. They were hard, not soft back then. And they had this idea that you were going to see Tosk multitask on all these machines rapidly. So the makeup on my arms, they built a prosthesis that went on and was glued on every day over the top half of my arms. And then they would make up my hands brown So I couldn't touch those contacts.
Oh no.
So I had an eye technician on set. His name was Jean-Pierre, and he was from a contact lens store in Beverly Hills. So one of the cool things, what's the order, Cirroc? Speed, sound, something, action. Every time before the clap.
Right.
So, but
Sound,
it would go.
speed,
They would
rolling.
say
Sound,
speed,
Right.
rolling.
sound,
Speed,
rolling,
rolling,
and
then
action.
yeah.
But in my shots, they'd say speed, sound, rolling, Jean-Pierre.
Contact
This
lens.
guy would walk into frame and stick his finger in my eye right before the shot and roll those cat's eye contact lenses straight. I don't know if you've ever had anybody do that. It's massively disconcerting. Massively so. We were middle of day one, and I went to Corey and said, listen, man, I need about 10 seconds after that guy takes his finger out of my eye to get back to being tossed, because Scott McDonald goes on red alert that somebody's going to touch his eye, and it gets in the way of my process. So can I just, and then we had a hand signal if I was in a close-up that I would give him, and then he'd say, end action. Once I could get
Smart that you
Tosk
voiced
back
that.
into my head. Yeah, it took me a while to get used to it. By day 3, I was over it, but it was crazy. Sometimes
So you can't touch your
along.
eye.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. All the time, all day long, touching them. And some takes we'd be doing it, and they'd say, "Oh, cut," and I'd say, "No, that's the line," and they'd say, "Now your contact lens is spinning." So we would have to start over,
Oh no!
It's like telling 3:00 now.
while we were shooting, and so and I'd think, "Oh, here comes Jean-Pierre again," and he would stick his finger in my eye. It was, and it was I lost 16.5 pounds in the 8-day shoot. I was sweating inside there like nobody's business. We would dump a half a glass of water out of each one of my boots at the end of the day. It was a full neoprene, full body wardrobe.
Wow.
Plus all of that 6.5 hours in it. It was brutal. It was a brutal makeup. I had no idea at all if what I was doing inside my head and inside that suit was translating at all to the outside. Because like I said, you don't have your face. Mm-hmm. So it was incredibly great when I saw the episode on TV, because I thought, oh my God, it worked. Because I had no idea. I really did. My first job, and now I look back on it and I understand why they were peppering me with all those questions. I mean, that was a big gamble to give me that big a job when I didn't have a lot of credits on a show that's just starting out. It just, at that time, you just think, well, I can do it. But by day 5, I was thinking, whew, I was running out of gas. I had my Friday, I had a 22.5-hour day. I got there at 3:00 in the morning and finally got out of the makeup at 1:30 a.m. and was leaving the lot, because they knew I had Saturday to rest. But I was a mess. The picture that's right behind
Melissa, Ryan, Melissa.
That on that day that we were filming, that was that Friday. And I remember I had the lines, I did it. The whole thing, it's right when Tosk arrives, and there was all this techno babble, and I'm exchanging information with them. And we finished it, and Corey said, great, punch in, let's do it one more time. And I said, do what one more time? And Corey said, the exact same scene, the one you just did. And I said, I don't know it.
Right, it's done.
They said, what? What do you mean you don't know? You just did it. You were word perfect. I don't know where we are. I don't know what we're doing. And then I remember one of the guys who was working the doors and just said, you better get that guy some Gatorade. And because I was just unraveling. It was just so late, and they gave me the script and I looked at it and thought, oh, this scene, okay. But it was 30 seconds later and I didn't remember what we'd done. So I remember Corey saying, we're going to have to catch the rest of this on Monday because,
he's done.
He's running out of gas.
Yeah.
It was an extraordinary physical effort.
Sounds like it.
To play Tosk. It really was. It was, people ask me what's your favorite Star Trek character because I played 6 different characters, but I'm the proudest of Tosk because it was such a war inside that suit. It was really difficult to overcome and get the character through the suit. And that collaboration with Corey, he was incredibly helpful.
You did an awesome job, Scott.
Thank you.
I'm glad you did it. You did a great job. There was a moment there when you called for the computer and the computer's voice came on and you did a jump back at the screen. You're like, whoa. And I just thought it was such a subtle choice to make, but it made me really feel, one, like you had like you were a reptile, because it felt like a reptilian type of reaction. I just saw a lizard the other day and the way it jumped when I walked past it.
Yeah.
You jumped
and
too.
so
I was trying for all that, the newness of everything.
Yeah,
because
and I saw it.
Like I said, the first one through the wormhole I felt like this gives me permission. That's why that broken speech pentameter that I use, Colm said, like day 2, I don't understand why you guys are letting him get away with this. We have the universal translator. He was a little annoyed. And and I said, yeah, but how does it know yet? I just came through the wormhole.
Right.
And that broken speech pentameter, I just liked it because I call him O'Brien. Everybody calls him O'Brien. I call him O'Brien. So I kept looking for 2-syllable words. There was one that you were talking about the ram scoop scene earlier. And that scene, the original line was, "Can it be fixed?" And I asked, can I say, "Can it be repaired?" Because it was 2 syllables. Can it be repaired? So that I could break. I liked it because it kept me in the rhythm of Tosk to speak in that sort of peculiar way. It gave me this psychological difference between me and everybody else, kind of help my performance, I thought. It might be actor overkill or whatever, but it was the choice I went for. But I didn't know, again, this thing of it being my first one, I didn't know that all had to go upstairs and to the writers and get okayed and come back down. I didn't realize I was creating. I just thought
you were making waves.
Havoc
you were making
created.
I really was. And I had no idea I was. I just thought, well, the script's super.
They must like your kind of waves because they kept bringing you back. So, I mean, when they're saying, when you're making waves for the purpose of making the character as great as you possibly can, and putting that thought into it, I don't think that's something that people look down bad upon. I think it's something that they're saying, well, he cares about this. He wants to get it right.
Exactly. They were motivated choices. They weren't egotistical, I guess, or look at me. They were just motivated choices that I just liked that 2 beats on words that I could do with him sometimes, because it would sort of bring me back to being him. Because like I said, there was this war going on inside that suit where Scott MacDonald wanted out. That stuff is claustrophobic. We had one day when Garrett Graham, who plays the Hunter, who's a massively accomplished actor himself and has incredible Star Trek credits besides the Hunter. He just unraveled one day and needed out. He started pulling on the makeup and was laying on the ground. I mean, I saw that a few times. Happened once when I was playing a Klingon. It happened to a guy. And I saw it once when I was playing the Xindi on Enterprise, where people just lost it.
They're like, get this off of me right now.
Yeah, right then.
Yeah,
I mean,
and they can't just pull it off like that. No,
Garrett was pulling on it, and they grabbed him and held him down and took him away. I remember Corey walked up and said, "Well, obviously the day has changed."
Yeah. They have a different schedule all of a sudden.
We're going to shoot all the over the shoulder. This stand-in will wear the hunter's gear, and we'll shoot all of your close-ups over the shoulder today, and we'll get Garrett tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so there was stuff like that, and I, you know, I was feeling it to a certain degree, but I was also so unbelievably jazzed to be on this great show and to be on the lot at Paramount and to be playing this character that it carried me through. I was spent a lot of days, but in a wonderful way, almost like, you know, you hear basketball players say, I could have gone another quarter. I was so ready. And it felt that way to me. I just felt ready to play him. You know, I was in my head, in that galaxy, in that space station, finally on Star Trek in my mind. I was supremely happy on set in that job. It was a incredibly great experience, and everybody was so cool. You talked about, like, what was it like the first time I walked in to the promenade, and there's a whole little scene where O'Brien comes and sees me in my ship, and then we walk out. And once again, here was one where I did something that I didn't know you weren't supposed to do, because it occurred to me while we were rolling. I came in, they rolled that door out of the way, and in we came into the promenade, and I took it in and did all of this physicalization of taking in the wonder of, because I mean, what a set. And then I looked right, and I didn't know who he was. It was Bashir, but I didn't know he was one of the leads of the show. And I had this idea, and I walked up and I got this close to him. And I hadn't done it in the original blocking. And I got up this close, and I looked him over and looked him over and looked him over, and then turned around and came back to O'Brien. And we got done, and Corey said, okay, cut. And Corey walked over and said, what was that? You didn't do that in the rehearsal. And I said, oh, sorry. Oh, well, I said, you're probably going to think it's dumb, but I have these cool cat's eye contact lenses, and in my imagination, they have a kind of a heat sensor in them.
Oh, cool.
When Tosk gets close, he can examine the biology of the creature so he sees the second human that he's seen since O'Brien, and he thinks, oh, okay, so they're kind of this way. I need to behave in such a way, because these are calm beings.
Mm-hmm.
Corey stood there for a minute and put his hand up and said, everyone gather around. And I was thinking, uh-oh, what have I done? Have I blown it, you know? And he said, most of you atmosphere people are actors, correct? You know, yes, everybody nodding heads. He said, I want you to listen to this. Tell that story again that you just told me, he said to me. And I'm thinking, I don't want to, you know, I really don't want to. I don't want to. I don't want this attention on me. I want to try to stay in character. So I said it all aloud again. I just said, well, I was just explaining, you know, that the eyes have a heat sensor and this and that and the other thing. And Corey said, all of you in this room need to take note of this fine actor and his motivated choices. That's how you act. Okay, let's get back to work. And I mean, again, another just unbelievably extraordinary moment with this guy, Corey Allen, who I already admired myself because I knew his career when I met him. But what a compliment, you know?
Right.
It was extraordinary. I mean, it was my first guest star. And of course, you know, I'm thinking in my mind once again, oh, you know, this happens all the time. And of course, it hasn't happened to me again in my career since that day. You know? But it was really great. I mean, just coming into the promenade, and it was just fortune favored the bold, because I didn't know Bashir was one of the stars of the show. No one knew who anybody was yet on that show. So every time I was meeting these characters, of course I knew who Renee was, and I had a scene with Odo, and I was very excited about him, and the scene, and I recognized immediately that wonderful scene between Tosk and Armin Shimmerman as they are amazed by each other. Because I thought, what's Tosk think of those ears? I mean, I leaned way forward and tilted in, and he did the same thing back because he's such a great actor. We sort of mirrored each other, and there was some great comedy found in that scene by him. And I remember thinking, oh, this show's going to be pretty good because these people are really good. They, I threw some stuff out unexpectedly in places, and they responded really well. And Colm and I got along really well.
I was going to ask you about Colm.
Yeah, yes. Sadly, we are just about out of time here, though. But what that means is that we've got to have you back, Scott, because we have so much more to talk about. You have so many more stories from different sets and different characters. I feel like there's still more about Tosk.
Before we go,
yeah,
can I just say how cool is this?
Yes.
Yeah.
One episode and I got my own action figure.
That's so cool.
That's a win.
No
right
way,
there.
right? No way. I have a great friend who said, getting a little action. I just,
figures.
No way,
All right. Well, that's great. There's also a Hunter action figure as well. Somebody in this panel has both. But anyway, Scott.
There was a obsessive compulsive Entertainment Weekly guide to Star Trek where they rated all the series, and unbelievably, Captive Pursuit was the #1 rated Deep Space Nine episode
at that time.
From, I think they'd only done 5 seasons at that time that they put that magazine out.
That's still great.
But still, a friend sent it to me in the mail. He was just like, "Look at this dude." I didn't even know they did that kind of stuff. It was, fans, when I started doing conventions, started giving me magazines and things like that. I didn't follow it that closely. So, an unbelievably great kickoff job. Just total luck out. Great writing. Great director, fantastic. Unbelievable actors. And
you killed it. You killed it.
Yeah.
And,
their patience for my.
We'll always have it to appreciate it.
Yeah.
People
Thank
will
you
always
very much.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Scott. This has been amazing. We can't wait to have you back, honestly. And it's got to be sooner than season 5 of The Next Generation. So we'll definitely be contacting you again. Big shout out to Lolita Fajo for hooking this up, our good friend. That was amazing.
Yeah.
Everybody, stick around. We've got a little bit more of this episode, Captive Pursuit, on the 7th Rule. We'll be right back.